Hello friends, I am Udayanchan case studying 12th in New Jersey Central School. I am here to narrate the chapter The Last Lesson. The author of the chapter is Alphonse Daudet. He was born in the year 1840 and passed away in the year 1897. He was a French novelist and short story writer. Initially he was a teacher and then he became a journalist. When our Alphonse wrote this story, it was during the time of Franco-Prussian War. The Franco-Prussian War took place in the year 1870s. Now let's move on to the chapter. I started for school very late that morning and was in great dread of his scolding, especially because Mr. Hamel had said that he would question us on participles, and I did not know the first word about them. For a moment I thought of running away and spending the day out of doors. It was so warm, so bright. The birds were chirping at the edge of the woods, and in the open field back of the sawmill, the Prussian soldiers were drilling. It was all much more tempting than the rule for participles, but I had the strength to resist and hurried off to school. The narrator of the story was a little boy named Franz. Actually, that morning, Franz was late to school, and also his teacher told that he would question on the topic participles. And Franz knew nothing about participles, and he was very tensed how he is going to manage situations. And on the way, he heard birds chirping at the edge of the wood, and he heard the drilling sound of Prussian soldiers at the back of the sawmill. These everything deviated the thoughts of Franz, and Franz planned to bunk the class. The chirping sound of birds and the drilling sound of Prussian soldiers were more interesting than the rules for participles. Lastly, he added a point that though his thoughts were deviated, he had the self-control to overcome all these situations and to reach school on time. When I passed the town hall, there was a crowd in front of the bulletin board. For the last 2 years, all our bad news had come from there. The lost battles, the draft, the orders of the commanding officer, and I thought to myself without stopping, what can be the matter now? On the way to school, he noticed the town hall was very crowded. He was very curious to know why the town hall was very crowded. Actually, he saw keenly in front of the bulletin board, people were gathered to read some notice. Actually, you may think what is meant by a bulletin board. Actually, bulletin board is nothing but a normal notice board which publish bad news like lost battles, draft, then orders for commanding officers. And now, without stopping, Franz was thinking what would be the matter. Then, as I hurried by as fast I could go, the blacksmith, watcher, who was there with his apprentice, reading the bulletin, called after me, "Don't go so fast, bub. You will get to your school in plenty of time." I thought he was making fun of me and reached Mr. Hamel's little garden all out of breath. As Franz was late to school, he ignored the crowd and was further moving. At the time, the blacksmith named Watcher, who was standing in front of the bulletin board along with his apprentice, called Franz. Actually, apprentice means they are common employee who is working under one person. So, the blacksmith called Franz. And Franz, without stopping, he turned and looked back at the blacksmith Watcher. At the time, Watcher said that, "Don't worry, you go slowly, you will get plenty of time to reach school." At the time, Franz was puzzled. He thought that blacksmith was making fun of him. And finally, he reached school. Now, usually when school began, there was a great bustle which could be heard out in the street. The opening and closing of desks, lessons repeated in unison, very loud with our hands over our ears to understand better, and the teacher's great ruler rapping on the table. But now it was all so still. I had counted on the commotion to get to my desk without being seen. But of course, that day everything had to be as quiet as Sunday morning. Through the window I saw my classmates already in their places and Mr. Hamel walking up and down with his terrible iron ruler under his arm. I had to open the door and go in before everybody. You can imagine how I blushed and how frightened I was. But nothing happened. Mr. Hamel saw me and said very kindly, "Go to your place quickly, little Franz. We were beginning without you." When Franz entered the school, he used to hear the sound in the street. He used to hear the sound of bench and desk. He also used to hear the sound of students uttering words repeatedly. And finally, he also used to hear the sound of teachers tapping the table with a ruler. But this day was very silent like Sunday morning. Mr. Hamel and students were already in class. When he went closer to the window, he found that his classmates were already seated in their places. And he noticed that Mr. Hamel was walking up and down with his iron ruler under his arms. He was very scared and tense that whether he is going to be punished, but he was not punished. Mr. Hamel warmly welcomed Franz. I jumped over the bench and sat down at my desk. Not till then, when I had got a little over my fright, did I see that our teacher had on his beautiful green coat, his frilled shirt, and little black silk cap, all embroidered, that he never wore except on inspection and prize days. Besides, the whole school seemed so strange and solemn. But the thing that surprised me most was to see on the back benches that were always empty the village people sitting quietly like ourselves. Old Hauser with his three-cornered hat, the former mayor, the former postmaster, and several others besides. Everybody looked sad, and Hauser had bought an old primer, thumbed at the edges, and he held it open on his knees with his great spectacles lying across the pages. Franz started admiring at Mr. Hamel's beautiful green coat, frilled shirt, and black silk cap with embroidery, because Mr. Hamel used to wear these kind of costumes only during prize day and inspection. A thing surprised Franz. The last bench, which is always empty, was filled with village people today. Old mayor, old postmaster, and old Hauser were present. Hauser bought an old primer with its pages folded at its edge. This book was kept above his knees, above which his spectacles was kept. While I was wondering about it all, Mr. Hamel mounted his chair and, in the same grave and gentle tone which he had used to me, said, "My children, this is the last lesson I shall give you. The order has come from Berlin to teach only German in the schools of Alsace and Lorraine. The new master comes tomorrow. This is your last French lesson. I want you to be very attentive." What a thunderclap these words were to me. Oh, the virtues! That was what they had put up at the town hall. Franz was totally puzzled. Mr. Hamel started to speak, and he said that this is the last French class, and he also said that they received an order from Berlin. They received an order from Berlin to teach only German in schools of Alsace and Lorraine, and Mr. Hamel also informed about the arrival of new master tomorrow. Now, Franz got a clear idea why the town hall was crowded. As this was the last French class, Mr. Hamel expected full attention from everybody. My last French lesson? Why? I hardly knew how to write. I should never learn any more. I must stop there then. Oh, how sorry I was for not learning my lessons, for seeking birds' eggs, or going sliding on the Saar. My books that had seemed such a nuisance a while ago, so heavy to carry, my grammar and my history of the saints were old friends now that I couldn't give up, and Mr. Hamel too. The idea that he was going away, that I should never see him again, made me forget all about his ruler and how cranky he was. And Franz felt sorry for not learning his lessons, and instead he went in search of birds' eggs and to play in Saar slide. This made Franz feel guilty. And then Franz also mentioned that he is going to miss Mr. Hamel. Poor man, it was in honor of this last lesson that he had put on his fine Sunday clothes, and now I understood why the old men of the village were sitting there in the back of the room. It was because they were sorry too that they had not gone to school more. It was their way of thanking our master for his 40 years of faithful service and of showing their respect for the country that was theirs no more. Franz said that now he understood why Mr. Hamel was wearing his Sunday clothes, and he also realized why village people were seated in the back bench. Yes, it was to show their gratitude and respect for the master who served for 40 years. While I was thinking of all this, I heard my name called. It was my turn to recite. What would I not have given to be able to say that dreadful rule for the participle all through, very loud and clear, and without one mistake? But I got mixed up on the first words and stood there, holding on to my desk, my heart beating and not daring to look up. Suddenly, he heard his name being called, because now it was Franz's turn to recite. His heart beat faster. He was desperate. He held the desk and looked down. I heard Mr. Hamel say to me, "I won't scold you, little Franz. You must feel bad enough. See how it is. Every day we have said to ourselves, 'Bah, I have plenty of time. I'll learn it tomorrow.' And now you see where we have come out. Ah, that's the great trouble with Alsace. She puts off learning till tomorrow. Now those fellows out there will have the right to say to you, 'How is it you pretend to be a Frenchman and yet you can neither speak nor write your own language?' But you are not the worst. Poor little Franz, we have all a great deal to reproach ourselves with." But Mr. Hamel did not punish. He also told that we always keep postponing our daily works by thinking that we have more time. But look, now they even can't speak or write even on their own language. Your parents were not anxious enough to have you learn. They preferred to put you to work on a farm or at the mills so as to have a little more money. And I have been to blame also. Have I not often sent you to water my flowers instead of learning your lessons? And when I wanted to go fishing, did I not just give you a holiday? Mr. Hamel said that your parents are not anxious about sending you to school because they are going to send you to farm or mill in order to earn some money. Then Mr. Hamel is also blaming himself. He is feeling guilty for sending Franz to water his flowers. He is also feeling bad for giving holiday for students when he went for fishing. I'll end my explanation here. Thank you for listening to my narration patiently. Bye. Stay home, stay safe, take care.